Okay, go ahead.
Erin is struggling with writing in that she doesn't want to do it. She is a strong writer in that she has a good voice. And for someone who's entering 5th grade, to me, that stands out. When she does write, when she does choose to write, it's just getting her to that point of doing the actual process. And I tried to break it down where we're just doing one paragraph a day and breaking it down into what you're going to write in that paragraph. And
how long is the story or essay that you want her to be writing? How many paragraphs?
This particular project is a state project, and she has to write 7 to 8 paragraphs.
And is she comfortable writing a shorter story or essay?
She'll still argue about that.
So I would say that before you expect her to be able to cope emotionally with 7 or 8 paragraphs, she needs to have lots of practice and confidence with something even that's just 1 paragraph, and build up gradually. Gradually doesn't mean slowly. Generally, if we go gradually, we actually can go faster. And you're familiar with the spoken word mini essays, and
Yes.
you've done those with the children.
Yes.
Have you done that with Erin recently?
No, I have stopped.
Okay. And what would you say is the reason you stopped?
I got out of habit because she was doing the writing on her own, and I forgot about the strategy until.
Right. So why don't you explain, for any parent who's listening, what a spoken word mini essay is?
So we would sit down and talk about what the length of the paragraph is going to be. So in Erin's case, it would be 5 to 7 sentences, and what the topic is going to be. And either I choose the topic or I allow her to choose the topic, and then we talk about that particular topic. What makes it interesting? What would be some good points to include in that? For me, I'd like to include also how can you include an adverb in that paragraph? Which one would you choose that would match that topic? And once we have discussed it, then I believe it's the next day that she writes it.
Well, actually, no, because it's a spoken word mini essay, so you wouldn't necessarily do the writing at all.
Oh, so she would just.
She would speak it, but speaking it is different from just discussing it. Because discussing it comes first, and you're giving ideas and she's giving ideas, and it's all fairly amorphous. But when you get to the spoken word mini essay, remember in the book it says to have a paragraph that's the same number of sentences as the child's age. So she's 10 now, so it would be a 10 sentence paragraph with an introduction and a conclusion as part of that. So she's got 8 sentences in the middle. And as she says each sentence, you can write down a word or a phrase that will remind her of what sentence she's come up with.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if when you were doing them, you did them in that structure, so that she actually had to come up with the sentences.
It's been a while since we were doing them, and we were using that strategy for her journal entries. And I believe I would write down the key words, but she would take that back and do the actual writing. So we weren't doing a spoken word. I
Right.
thought that was part of.
Well, you can certainly do that, but if a child is at all uncomfortable or resistant or unconfident, you want to do a number of the spoken word mini essays before they actually have to write. Because there's so many things you have to pay attention to with writing that feel onerous to a child. The handwriting, the spelling, the punctuation, the grammar, the capitals, all of that is generally why children don't want to write. Whereas if they can just tell it, they're usually keen to it. But with the spoken word mini essay, they're not just rambling. Each sentence will be honed through the questions that you ask, which will have to do with adjectives or adverbs or you would be asking something like, well, how would somebody who's listening to this understand that you mean frogs when it sounds like you mean dogs? And so that you're helping her realize that she has to pay attention to what it is called, but I talk about it in my book, shared background knowledge, because that's a big thing. Knowing what the listener or the reader is likely to know, so that you know what to include and explain versus what you can just take for granted. So the spoken word mini essays shouldn't be rushed. Be willing to do as many of those as it takes, because she's learning so much about writing. What she's not learning about is the spelling and punctuation and the capitals.
Right, which I feel is different.
Which is different. That's the mechanics.
Right. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. That'll be $300.